Welcome back to Million Dollar Landscaper Podcast. I'm excited to bring back on Isaac Barlow of Busy Busy. Now, Isaac was on about 2 episodes ago, and we started talking about labor data and how Busy Busy can help you do that. Now, today, he starts sharing some awesome information on how systems and culture all tie together. And he actually gets down to the nitty gritty and actually giving you some ideas on what systems you should start to implement in your landscape business. So I encourage you guys to check out today's episode. But a quick word from our sponsors.
The only app every landscaper needs. Company Cam makes it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Company Cam brings documentation, communication, and liability protection together in one simple, easy-to-use app for you and your entire team. Take unlimited photos and videos, share custom reports, create flawless before and afters, and even communicate and share progress with homeowners with galleries and project timelines, all from your smartphone. Company Cam, the only app every landscaper needs. Check it out at companycam.com/million or in your app store.
We want to take a quick second to tell you about our friends over at Cycle CPA. I can't even express to you how important it is to have a good accountant on your side. You know you want accurate bookkeeping and financial statements every month. Instead, you're often left with limited time to focus on the accounting side of your business and no reports to show for it. At Cycle CPA, the landscaping accountants, they not only handle the bookkeeping, but also provide landscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA has a team of landscaping accountants available to provide anything from bookkeeping to CFO services. Visit cyclecpa.com and for $100 off, mention the Million Dollar Landscaper Podcast. If you want to get the leads you want and turn your current clients into raving fans, then you need to try SendJim. They've created an exclusive offer just for our listeners. If you sign up today, you can get your first month for just $2. So if you haven't already, go to sendjim.io/MDL, where you can get even more exclusive deals just for Million Dollar Landscaper Podcast listeners. That's sendjim.io/MDL and take advantage of these awesome deals today.
This podcast is brought to you by Busy Busy. Busy Busy is so simple to use, and it's the most reliable GPS time tracking app on the market. And the best part is, it was built for landscapers. Busy Busy's founder created Busy Busy because he owns multiple construction companies and needed to understand better which projects were making him money and which projects were killing him. Payroll is the highest variable cost in the project, so you better be tracking it. Busy Busy does this better than anyone else. So download Busy Busy today, and don't forget to mention the Million Dollar Landscaper Podcast to get 3 free months. Welcome back to Million Dollar Landscaper Podcast. Now, I'm excited to have on a returning guest. His name is Isaac Barlow of Busy Busy. He's the CEO and creator of Busy Busy. And Busy Busy, if you're not familiar with it, is the number one time tracking app out there in the market right now. And I encourage all of listeners to go out and check it out. They actually have a free version to help you start clocking in and clocking out your team members. But they also have a paid version, which goes way further and gives you all kinds of information that you need to see where your employees are at and give you just all kinds of data. And if you're not familiar, we actually did a podcast episode a few weeks back with Isaac, and we actually took a deep dive into Busy Busy and all the features of it. And it's really a very cool app. I'm excited to actually have them as a sponsor of our podcast. So welcome, Isaac. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Scott. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. So today we actually kind of want to shift topics. We actually kind of change this up a little bit, but we actually wanted to kind of dive into systems and culture in your business and actually how they actually tie together. And many people, from just what I've seen and heard, they kind of think of them as two separate type of things in their business, but they really actually tie everything together, tie everybody together. Don't you agree?
I totally agree. We think systems and culture are the pillars of your business. Like that's how you become successful and profitable.
Yeah. And I'm a huge systems fan, and I've heard you're a huge system fan. I really encourage everyone to really start thinking. I mean, you're already doing it in your life anyhow, as far as having systems and procedures, but I really encourage everyone to start doing those types or starting implementing those types of things right away in their business. What about you?
Absolutely. I think systems and culture are the most important part of your business. I think you have to decide what kind of culture you're going to create, and systems end up being part of your culture. On a prior podcast, on the last time I was here, I said, if I was going to go into any area and just go into an area and start off new and compete with the local businesses in the area, the first thing I would do is hire top talent. And I would tell them your number one job is to collect the data. Your number two job is to do your work. And the reason why that's so important is because you automatically start off with being informed. And if you're an informed business, you can make good decisions. And if you recruit your top culture, like for me, when I try to think, what do I want my culture to be about? I want my culture to have the best workers in it, the people who are such good workers that they're self-motivated, they're A players, they get the job done, they're aligned with ownership and with management as far as trying to be profitable. And I want to take care of them. I want to take good care of those people. And all those things work together with your systems, because if you don't have good systems, you don't have the information you need to make the profit that you need to take care of the good people. And so it lines up hand in hand to me.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, if they get into a business and they see that they really don't have their crap together, to be honest, like they don't have their things together, they're probably not going to stick around. The business may not last. So
That's
if,
right.
if somebody comes in and sees, oh, they do this and this and this, that's great. They're more encouraged to stay and more encouraged to add more value to your business overall.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I personally think you can put off or turn over really key employees, really key workers by just not having a good systems and culture, because they're really wondering how can I thrive? How can I thrive in your business? Because what you want to do is you want to build a culture where your people feel like a family or a team. It's your team. And you think of a lot of us watch sports, and you watch these different football teams and different ones, and you watch what kind of culture they created around them. You have your leaders, you have your captains and your quarterbacks and so forth, but you watch how they create that culture around them, and that culture attracts those same type of A players. And if you don't put that together, how do you attract them? And part of that culture has to be systems, because if you don't have the systems in place, you can't afford to pay those people. You can't afford to give them the information they need to thrive. A players want to thrive. They want the data. They want to know what their performance looks like. If I go, like, I'll use myself as an example. When I was younger working in the industry, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to make that sound arrogant, okay? But when I was younger working in the industry, I had one of the most, I would run the most profitable crews in our business, in our excavation business. And this is from a young age. And the reason why is because what I did is I immediately started analyzing the job. When they'd give me a job and say, okay, here's the job for you to do, and here's how you're supposed to do it, I would analyze that job, and then I would start tracking that data. And I was such a nerd that I would collect that data every night, and I would process it and put it together. So the next morning I'd review it with the crew and say, look, here's what we achieved yesterday, and here's how much percentage we're done with our job, and here's how much man hours we have left in our budget, and all those kind of things. And here's what we've got to do today, and here's how we've got to do it. And so I was able to every day, you might say manually, keep them excited, keep them informed, keep them motivated on what needed to be accomplished today and how we were going to do it. And then as they were doing it, I would let them know, I would give them feedback on how their performance was. Like, did they excel? Were they top performers? Top performers want that feedback. They want to know, am I a top performer? And so we would end up having some of the highest margins out of the crews. I think, a lot of jobs we average about 25% profit margin, which is really high for the construction industry. And that's the truth. We averaged about that high of margins. And we did it so much based on just motivating and encouraging and exciting the crew. And so when I founded busybusy, that was some of the stuff that I thought about. Is that as I got to manage a bigger business and more teams, it was harder for me to do that on an individual basis and connect with people individually and say, hey, here's the information you need. Here's what you need to know. Here's how you can thrive in your business. And so as anyone knows that's grown a business, that's your systems. As your business expands, you've got to put your systems in place. Otherwise, your culture falls apart.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And actually, it's funny you say that, because you and I are very similar like that. I would gather this data too at the end of the day and then try to figure out. And then again, I would use it to motivate. And then I also use it to look at our past estimate or the estimate for that job and see how we compared, and then make adjustments for the future.
That's right.
It's you have to, but
if you're an A player, and I'm sure, I hope we both are, I'm sure we are, you look at every job as a new opportunity. It's like you get given a new job and you're like, oh, this is a great new opportunity. I want to see if I can beat the estimate. I want to see if I can do better, if I can push more money. That's how you look at a job. And you want to attract people like that, that think like that. And people like that, you have to have good systems for them to thrive.
Mm-hmm. So for those out there that, have not used or added any systems to their business, is there anything that you kind of encourage them to begin with and start to think about?
Yes, absolutely. The number one thing is tracking your data. And what I mean by that, obviously I'm CEO of busybusy, and we have a time tracking, and I say this very, very honestly. That's why I created this job, or that's why I started with this software first, is you have to track your labor data, and you have to track your time. You have to know, because in the world of construction, you've got to have what I would call the construction accounting cycle. But basically, you've got to remember three things. You've got to estimate your job, you have to execute on your job, and then you have to evaluate your job. And if you can't evaluate your job, that's your first system you've got to get in place, because you start off in business, you're putting your estimates out there, and nothing can kill you faster than a bad estimate, as you probably know. And so if you're not taking that evaluation piece in line, you're going to have problems quickly, and hopefully you figure out fast. So I would say that's your number one system. And in that evaluation, your biggest variable is your labor data, your man hours. That you know your materials, how much materials is going to take in a job, how much time is it going to take to do this job. Well, that's really the reason we call it an estimate, is because we're estimating that amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to track that time, and you've got to get that dialed in so that you have a good understanding of how well you're tracking to your estimates. To me, that's number one.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. The other thing I would add with once you start gathering that data and you're evaluating and you're looking at comparing to your estimate, I always tell people to look at whether it's you have made the mistake as the estimator, or whoever does your estimates for you, whether they miscalculated the amount of time, or look at your crews. Is there a way that you can improve your productivity out there, or did they perhaps run into an issue like we're digging in the dirt all the time. We come across like a slab of concrete that we didn't know was there, is buried.
Yep.
Well, is that an add-on that you could have, add to increase, to kind of cover that time? So is there, a change order that could have been put in place to help recover that? Or is there, again, just as a way to improve your productivity through crews, as a training, whatever it is, so that this data does a lot more than just the regular job costing.
You're absolutely right, and I'm so glad you brought up that point. It's a fantastic point, because the estimators can make mistakes, and you have to be very careful about that. I want to tell you just a quick story of that happening to me. I said we were a high performing crew, and we were. So the highest performing job I ever did, we lost money on. So that sounds like a big contrast when I said, "Hey, we're 25% profitable," right? But it's true. So I went one of the jobs. So I would do this where we track, and I would do the data nerd stuff at the end of the day, like you said you did. And so they sent us out on this job. We're putting in all the utilities for a grocery store, Harmon's grocery store in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I go there, and I'm doing all the things that I do. I'm lining up the crew. I'm motivated. I'm telling them what we have to achieve every day. We're literally counting the minutes that it takes for us to put a stick of pipe in, because we are just so dialed in, and we're beating it. So I called the surveyors and I said, we need to get sewer staking out here. And so they staked our sewer line. And 2 days later, I called them and I said, we need water staking. They said, that's impossible. We just barely staked your sewer 2 days ago. And I said, yeah, it's done. We need our water. And they literally had to drive out to the job site to verify that, because they didn't believe it. We were performing at just the highest level I've ever seen. It was really one of those fun jobs where it just felt like everybody was on fire. Everybody's just clicking right and dialing right in, and just killed it, right? Okay. So that happened the whole job. It was just the best job we've ever done. At the end of the job, this is before I had taken over the estimator office position. In fact, this is why I took over the estimator office position, as they said, well, I said, how'd we do? And they said, well, you guys suck. You lost money. I said, if we sucked on that job, we should get out of the business. There's no money to be made in this business, because there's no way a crew's going to perform better than that. Because I had the experience, I had the trade experience, that I knew what I was doing. And so it made me dive in and dig into the estimate and say, okay, what happened? And I found out that the estimator made a massive mistake. And so really, here's how, if they understood their data, here's what they would have said. Thank you for only losing 27,000 on the job. You were kind of set up to lose 100,000. Like we were set, the stage had been set for us to lose a lot of money, and we end up only losing a little bit of money. So we minimized their losses. Now, this is a really good story to talk about systems and culture. Okay, so if you don't have the systems in place, which the company I was in didn't, and now you blame your crew, okay, and you say, oh, it's your fault. You just blamed a high-performing crew for an estimator's mistake. What do you think is going to happen to that crew? They're one of two things. Either they're going to go down in their performance, or they're going to leave you, because they're high-performing crew. And what really needed to happen was for you to have, if you understand data trends, for example, on this particular job, we were installing 500 feet of water line plus hydrants and bends and stuff like that in a day. With that size of crew that we were, typical for that would be 300 in a day. And so if you understand your data trends, then you realize real quick, okay, the estimate was the problem. The crew's producing at a high performing level. And if you have the systems, you can understand your trends. But if you don't have the system, and then you just start with the blame game, and this is another part of culture, is your culture needs to be, if you want a high thriving culture, it needs to be a culture of communication and a culture of trust. People need to be, your crew, your supervisors, they need to be able to talk to you. You need to be able to be approachable so they can say, hey, boss, I really think the estimate was botched here. You gave me a labor budget for 50 hours and we got this done in 80 hours, but we were doing our best. And if you don't have that kind of culture where they can talk to you and communicate with you, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose your best people.
Mm-hmm. We had something like similar with an estimator that he did not like getting told that he estimated incorrectly. We had something similar. We did a lot of water features. I did a lot of ponds and waterfalls and everything. And so we had it pretty dialed in. The same thing, everybody had this specific job. They knew exactly what to do. They got the job site. The one guy would do this part, another guy would do this part, and just things clicked. And a couple times he estimated way short on time. And I approached him and asked him about that. And he got very upset because I came to him and like, well, that's right. I'm like, well, so I pulled up past jobs that we've done and looked at, the times. Okay, this is what we did, this type of job, very similar, and you're way under that. And he was not approachable by any means about that. He actually got so upset. He actually left after a couple more jobs. And like, well, we can't lose money because you're underestimating. And I know you're trying to get the job, but this is where having the information is so helpful.
Yeah, if you're going to estimate so low to take a loss to get the job, at the very least you need to acknowledge that. You need to say,
Yep.
hey guys, we had to cut this one so tight. You're gonna be lucky to make any profits, but we had to keep everybody busy.
Yep. Yeah. So, but I do love the point of rewarding people and communicating with people to build up the culture. I think that's so important, and that's really what's going to help keep your people in line. Even if you're not doing so great, if your business isn't going great, go talk to those people and get their information. I suggest having what's dumb around here meetings. So ask your crews, get them all together, buy some coffee, buy some donuts in the morning. Say, hey guys, we're struggling here. What is going wrong? What do you see in your eyes? What do we need to improve? And I guarantee you, there's going to be some ideas out there that you probably didn't even think about.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is just the smartest thing. We waste. I joked at one. So I've given different seminars on this before, and I joked at one seminar. I said if I were to go out and I created this Android that had all the capacities of a human being, like if I created a robot that had all the capacities of a human being, I'd become a multi-billionaire. I mean, overnight, I'd be a multi-billionaire because it would be so amazing, because it'd be so useful, because it would accomplish so many things. And yet we've got 7-8 billion of them out there. Maybe we should consider using them better. And so then it's like, well, why is a human being so superior? Why are you so superior as a creature? Because of your brain. And you've got people working for you that have brains, and they have good brains. And so you'd be surprised if you'd go ask them like, hey, what do you think I could do better as a leader? Or what do you think I could do better on my job? Or any of those things. If you create that culture, not only be surprised how much great information you'll get back, but you'll be surprised how much they'll feel better about working for you.
Absolutely. I honestly contribute that to helping us keep our employees. We've had, in the landscape industry, it's kind of unheard of, but we've had multiple people stay for 10 plus years. Our last guy who just left, he worked at 16 years. He stayed with us, and all he did was mow. Like, we offered him multiple times to move up to a crew leader, but he didn't want it. But we communicated with him and talked to him and valued his input, because he knew what had to be happening on the job site. But he stayed with us, and I honestly believe it's because of communication and just and acting or treating him as a human, and and I think that really helped us.
That's awesome. No, I think we think a lot alike that way. That's your systems need to be something that simply help you to get the maximum out of your people. And I don't mean maximum like, let's push them for every ounce of blood they got in them. I mean, maximize their ability to succeed. Like someone has a potential, how can you get the maximum potential out of your people? Your system should be helping you do that.
Mhm.
And it is communication, like you say, it is tracking, it's understanding what's going on, and then it's taking that feedback and continuing to go through that loop. Like I mentioned, if you estimate, you execute, and you evaluate, part of your evaluation should be getting that feedback from your people as well. Take that into consideration, and then just keep optimizing your job and your business, and then you're turning it into a well-oiled machine that makes a lot of money for you.
Mhm. So after a company would institute, some kind of system for collecting the data and information, what would you recommend would be the next step after that, as far as systems?
Um, After they implement where they're collecting the data, I would say the next step is just sorry, my brain just went down two paths at the same time.
It's all right.
I was going to say, once you collect the data, make sure you're giving the feedback. So either the application can give the feedback directly to the people, or you can, but make sure you give them the feedback, because people want to know. Like if you're having to make the effort to put in data, they want to know how it's benefiting them. So you got to get that feedback. But then the next thing I would say is continue to hone your focus. Like your systems should hone your focus and your crew's focus on revenue producing activities. So, like say processing payroll as an example. Processing payroll does not produce me any revenue, and I should make that a system as fast as I can. Like we use Gusto right now, and my excavation company does. And busybusy is actually in the process of finalizing a partnership with Gusto, so you'll be able to use Gusto right through busybusy and
Nice.
and in right through our system. So processing payroll, paying taxes, all those kind of things, those are not revenue producing activities. You need to systemize those as soon as you possibly can, so that your focus is on revenue producing activities, and then you can lead your people to keep their focus on revenue producing activities.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Uh, I'm actually trying to convince my mom, who's the secretary of our landscape business, to get rid of payroll doing it. She's been doing it the same way for years, and she gets in her own way. She won't change her
Yeah,
mindset on it. And I'm like, Mom, you spend so much time. She literally does it in QuickBooks, and then she does it on paper as well. She's very old school. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like we have so many things out there to save you so much time. Like Gusto itself. I threw out that name, Gusto. I'm like, check it out. Like, but
it's
yeah,
it's amazing, and it's about to be right in our application. But it's literally, for dollars. I mean, there's just no way you can compete with it. You spend, how many employees do you have? How many employees do you have?
in the heat of the season, it's 20 to 25 people.
Okay, so you're going to spend like a few $100s on Gusto, and there's just not a chance your mom's going to not make better money. There's not a chance that she's not going to do better for your company by focusing on something else. It's
Exactly.
just amazing.
Well, so I'm like said the example. I'm like, you need to be doing like the $100 activities, if not higher, for our
Yep,
business, not doing payroll. I'm like, it's not worth it. Like you waste so much time, but
that's right.
it's trying to change your mindset. It's so hard sometimes.
Do the pay evaluation, evaluate people's wages, and make sure you're paying them right. But then once you've got that nailed, just let the system go.
Yeah.
Or I mean, let it happen. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that you see all that.
Well, yeah, and it helps me because I'm like always looking, like I said, to see ways to make it better, and that's like for years I've been trying to do it. But she's old, and not I shouldn't say old, but she's older and just
Yeah,
stubborn and stuck in her ways. I'm like, well, there's
she's got that tradition. She's done it a certain way her whole life, and so it's hard to shift. And that's actually part of the culture. We talked about this on the last podcast a little bit, but the thing you will encounter the hardest is the habit changing of part of your culture. And so I mentioned this last time, but Simon Sinek goes through this video when he talks about start. It's called Start with the Why, and it's about an 18-minute YouTube video. I'll send it to you after this
okay.
podcast. But he goes through and he says, whenever you introduce a new idea to any market, okay, and so you can decide where your mom falls into this. But he says you start off, you can divide a group of people into these different components. He says there's the innovators. I mean, this is like your real low percentages. Like this is 2% of your population. These are the people that want the technology before it's ready. They're so excited for the technology. They want it before it's even ready. I mean, they want the new iPhone. They want the new TVs, laptop. They're the ones that paid the highest prices for it because they just wanted to be part of that. And then you have your early adopters. And those are the people that once the innovators have worked things out, the early adopters are like, hey, that's cool. I want to do that too. And they'll jump on. And then he gets into a segment that's oh my gosh, I lost the terms. But anyway, then you get your kind of your next early part of the segment, and then your late part of the segment, and you get up to like 85 to 90% of the group of people at that point. Then your last 10% are the laggards, and he calls them the laggards. He says these ones are the ones that are like, I don't care how much this benefits my life. Like these are the people that if you would have gone back to medieval times when fighting with swords and you offered them a machine gun, they'd say, I don't want to see that.
Yep. Yep.
I want to use a sword.
That's unfortunately that's my mom. Hope you're not listening, Mom. But
my parents do the same way. I mean, my dad was worse by far than that.
Yeah. But it's so important, like we said, to look at the technologies that's out there and available to you to help attract the new people. I think that's something we talked about in the last podcast is using technology like busy, and it's going to help attract that people and create that culture of that you're always looking to improve and innovate and become better at your business. So I think it's important to look at what's out there and just see how you can add it to your business.
Yeah, a good leader puts in systems to help get the maximum potential out of his people or her people so that they can thrive. Like if you're there's a lot of data on this out in the industry, a lot of information that says, okay, you shouldn't pick the company you want to work for. You should pick the boss you want to work for. And I agree with that. And the reason I agree with that is you should pick the type of leader that will help get the maximum potential out of you so that you can hit your maximum level of earnings and be able to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And A players think like that, so if you don't have systems in place that help them see what they're doing, what they could do better, how they could engage in more training or more, whatever the case is, how they can raise their value to you up and up and up so they can keep growing and their income and their career and their opportunities and their possibilities. If you don't have that kind of system, and especially if someone else does, you're going to lose your A players to that person because you need that kind of system. You've got to be able to help people maximize their potential. Everybody wants, they want to maximize their potential. They want to be proud of their job and they want to do a good job. When I say everybody, I should say A players, like good employees that you want to have, they want this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I guess kind of along those lines. So if you have somebody that is, a B player, do you try to work with them to move them up, or is it something you just kind of they're not going to do me any good? I just kind of write them off. What's your thoughts on that?
Thanks for asking that question. It's such a great question. Yeah, I would never write someone off that wants to improve. I think you can move people up from a B player to an A player. I think, I've got other friends that say that you can't move up a C player. Well, I believe you can. I'm a believer in people. Okay. But I think the people you should let go of are the people that have no desire to improve. If they have desire to improve, I think you should always be trying to help them maximize their potential and do better and find the right seat on the bus that they fit in. Because you can't beat attitude. Having someone with an attitude that wants to improve, you just can't beat that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned here something that I think it's kind of smart is to look at the individual and see maybe they'd be better suited in another position. It may still be in your business, but it might be something else. Like for us in our landscape business, we have, general like landscaping, design, build stuff. And then we have our lawn maintenance division. So we've had people that were applied to be in the landscape side. So they're putting in plants and grading whatever it is. But they really they didn't really want to be part of a team. They just kind of want to work by themselves. So we actually moved them from that to the lawn maintenance side where they're actually just on a mower or weed eat up and they're just kind of by themselves. But they did great at it. So it's kind of looking at each person individually and see where they could maybe better fit somewhere else.
That's smart of you. And that's such a good culture that you have to do that. You mentioned it. I kind of identified that when you mentioned your guy that likes to mow lawns is, sometimes they will tell you the seat that they want on the bus. Like you're trying to move him to this other seat. You're like, hey, you could be a supervisor. And he's like, no, I want this seat on the bus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay. That's great.
Yeah, it just kind of blew my mind when he's like, "No, I don't want to do that." I'm like, okay, like I was not expecting that. After this conversation, I was not expecting that. It like threw me off. Threw a curveball at me. But and just after talking to him a couple more times, he was just happy doing that. He just said, "I just want to come in, mow, and I'm fine with it." We increase his pay and everything else, but
Yeah.
it's that's just how he was, and he was good at it. So okay.
It's another good experience as a leader to realize that not everybody thinks like you.
Yeah.
You might think everybody wants to be advanced to superintendent. Somebody might not want to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That was it was an eye-opening experience for me. I just, like I said, I was not expecting it. Everybody I've ever dealt with always wanted to kind of move up, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't him. So, okay, fine. But
Yeah, I could see that. That's a person that just kind of wants a lot of peace in their mind. They're like, well, no, I just want to have some peace.
yeah,
I'm just gonna do my thing.
yeah. And that's fine.
That's
It's
cool.
good. If you're happy with it, then I'm happy with it. So, is there anything else you'd like to add about the systems and culture that we haven't really talked about?
Well, I would say that, when we talk about combining systems and culture, just getting that information to people and making it really clear. We talked about it, with the bad example I gave of doing a job where we had excessive performance, incredible performance, and then they didn't even know it. They didn't even know how to comprehend that we had it. Um, and we talk about that being the downside of systems and culture. Like if you don't have good systems, then you can have bad culture. But I like to spin it to the positive side, and that is every human being out there wants three emotional things. They want approval, acceptance, and appreciation. Okay. And so if you have good systems, and everybody does, I'm telling you, everybody does. This is me too. Probably you too. I mean, everybody just wants those things. They want to know that they're doing good. They want to be approved of, and they want to be appreciated. And so if you have the system in place that you can say, here's the budget for this job. Here's this job. I don't care whether you give bonuses or not. Most people, the biggest bonus they want is the acknowledgement. So if you have a system in place that says, here's how this job should have done, and someone just outperforms the heck out of it, and you just go acknowledge them and say, wow, you did such an amazing job. I can't believe you completely beat all prior trends that we had thought of and all prior expectations. I just want to come out and thank you for being part of our team and tell you how much I appreciate you. That goes so far. And the systems help it be authentic. You can't go make that stuff up. And if you have the right systems in place, then you're very authentic, and you come out and you can get so much out of your team. And everybody that's listening to this podcast can understand this. How do you get, if you had a whole bunch of yous that work for you, you'd make a lot of money, right? I mean, because you're motivated, you're excited, you're dialed in, you want to produce revenue, all this kind of stuff. You have to create a culture that helps you get your team aligned with you on revenue producing activities, so that they are producing it and they're killing it, and you're telling them how great they're doing, and that just fuels their fire, and you just move it along. And so the positive side of systems are, you'll be surprised how those things impact people, because it impacts them at an emotional level, and everybody wants that, and they want to be a master of their trade too.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great point to just to go up and acknowledge them. Like you said, that's something that everybody wants. I love that. Well, Isaac, I appreciate you being on the show. Guys, I encourage you to go check out Busy Busy. And if you actually sign up for their program and you mention $1 Million Landscaper Podcast, you actually get 3 months for free. So, Isaac, I appreciate you being so generous to offer that to our listeners. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited, and we're excited for your listeners. So I want to tell you something about your own listeners, if you don't mind me making a statement.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So we study the industry, and overall across the whole construction industry, the trend is that 70% of people fail. Okay, they just do. 70% of the time, businesses in the construction world go out of business. They start in business, within 7 years, they're dead. 70% of them. So anyway, people who work on improving their business are usually part of that 30%. And the fact that your listeners are listening to your podcast mean that they're interested in improving their business. So I just want to give a compliment to them. And those are the people we are excited to give 3 months free to, because we think they'll see the value. We think they'll understand it. And they are the people that are self-improvement mentality, and they are the people who will succeed in the end.
I couldn't agree with you more. Well, Isaac, thank you again. And also, thank you very much for being a sponsor of the podcast. We really appreciate it. And we love providing
Absolutely.
the value like you have brought on with the show today. And we look forward to working with you some more and look forward to having you on the podcast in the future.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Isaac. Got a couple minutes for some fun questions?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. I stunned him last
Surprised me
time.
last time.
Yeah. All right. So what's left on your bucket list?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Okay. I've never been to the country Israel, and I want to go to Israel, and I want to actually, follow the trail or walk the trail where our Savior walked. Like that's something I do. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, there's all this conflict in the Middle East." And I'm always like, I think I'll be okay.
I love that. I like that. All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow, that's a big question. Let me think about that one for a moment.
Sure.
Best piece of advice I've ever been given.
Yeah, I would think I would have to think about that one too. It's a tough one.
Yeah. Let me jump back to that one. Give me your
Yeah,
third one, and then let me
absolutely.
jump back to that one.
All right. What is something that you hate but wished you loved?
Something I hate that I wished I loved. Wow. Something I hate I wish I loved. Well, I mean, my mind immediately goes to exercise, and I don't hate exercise. I just wished I loved it more because I have a hard time prioritizing it. So trying to work out, do things like I'm like right now I'm on a sugar challenge with my family, so I went off sugar for we did no sugar march, and my plan is to go through that and then move into more exercising. So I guess I don't specifically hate it, but I wished I loved it more to prioritize it more in my life. So
That's a good
I'll have
answer.
to go with that one.
Okay.
Okay, best advice ever. Wow, that is such a well. Let me just put it this way, and I don't know. I don't know how to frame it as advice I was given. I've been mentored by many people in my life, and I have business mentors. Everybody should have mentors. It really helps you so much in your life. But probably the best advice I can think of is you've got to have a cause that's greater than yourself. And for me, that advice was given to me on a religious basis. You've got to have a cause that's greater than yourself. And the reason you do, and you can apply it to business too, but the reason you do is whether you want to call it a cause or a vision or a goal or whatever the case is, usually in business, I would call it vision. If it's greater than yourself, then you won't give up and you won't stop, because the key to success is persistence. And so you can't give up. And so if you will have a vision, whatever it is, of building your company, your family, your holy religion, whatever the case is, if you make sure that vision is greater than yourself, it'll make you a greater person, because having something that's greater than yourself causes you to continually try to do better, and it makes you not give yourself excuses. If you're the last judge, I guess, of your own actions, then you're always fine. But if you get something better